Hello readers and welcome back to Tell Between Tales. Today we are going to discuss Robin Hobb's The Ship of Magic, or the Liveship Traders Trilogy. This is the trilogy that I picked up immediately after reading the Kingkiller Chronicles because it came so highly recommended. And I had read the Farseer trilogy like 15 years ago. And so it was probably about time to return to Robin Hobb. And I'm going to say now, I definitely enjoyed it reading Robin Hobb now, 15 years older, than I did back way back when. I think I definitely appreciated her writing style and her story much more than when I was much younger. So pull up a chair and let's get started. All right, so the Liveship Traders Trilogy, consisting of Ship of Magic, Mad Ship, and Ship of Destiny. These are some really thick books. They're each over 800 pages. I don't have the physical copy because I read them on Kindle. I do almost all of my book reading through Kindle, and I do it all through the Libby app. So I really utilize my library. So if you want to start reading more and you don't know where to start or have the funds for it, the library is a great place. But I read this book just about as fast as a mom of 4.5 kids could. I say 4.5 because I was expecting my 5th at the time. And it takes a bit of time to get through, but even though this story is not like action-packed, fast-paced, it is a slow burn. You sit with the characters and you feel them and you feel their experiences and their emotions and everything that they go through and do. And you just really get to know them very well and feel like, you're really a part of their world and inside their mind and like you're their friend they are really become quite beloved because Robin Hobb does just such a good job with her character work. And this is when I discovered that I really enjoy character-driven stories. I really enjoy stories that suck you in with the characters and learning about them, and having a book really make you care about your characters, even if they're not good characters, because not all of the characters that you get point of views from are the protagonists or are the good characters. You have a couple point of views from the flip side, which we would be considering our villain characters, and they are just such fascinating characters. And I've noticed also that one of my biggest pet peeves in a book is when a character does something that is not probable or not maybe psychologically accurate. You can check out my Orphan Train video if you want a great example of how a character is not acting the way that they are written and they should have acted. And we have none of that here. This is just a masterpiece of character work, and I really enjoyed it. So this is a nautical fantasy, as you can probably tell from the title, being the Liveship Traders. But it's not all that it has to offer. I mean, I really enjoyed sitting on the sea and on the boats. I mean, you get a lot of ship life and learning about how the ship works and the social environment around there and all of the ins and outs of that. That is not all that the book has to offer. You basically start following a family. Now, this family owns a live ship. They live in a place called Bingtown, and they own a live ship. And what a live ship is it's carved from this mysterious wood called wizard wood. And it's got, of course, the whole ship is carved from wizard wood, and these ships have like the figurehead. And you have to sail this ship for 3 generations before the live ship will quicken. And at that moment when the live ship quickens, the figurehead basically comes to life. and you can talk to the figurehead, and they have emotions and feelings and their own independent thoughts. They are a sentient being, and they are independent, in and of themselves, even though they have all of the memories from the previous owners. And it has to stay within the family. So like these 3 generations all have to be family generations, and you have to have someone from that family always on the live ship. Otherwise, they get a bit emotionally unstable. And so that in and of itself is very interesting. That's where most of the magic in this book comes into play. There's not a lot of other outside magic. There's a little bit of other outside magic, but that's going to be like the most of it. You get to learn a little bit about the rain wilds in the first book, but the first book is really all about the interactions between the family members in this family. So we start off with the mother and the father. We have Veronica and Ephron Vestrit. So they're the mother and the father. And then we're really focusing on their 2 daughters. You have Althea and you have Kefria. And Althea is going to be the youngest. She is very much a free spirit, and she wants to be on the open seas, and she's expecting to inherit their family ship when their father passes away. And then you have Kefria, who's very much more the traditional female role. She went and got married, she had kids, she stays home, and she lets her husband go and do all of the run the businesses, and her husband is his name is Kyle, and he is on the ship with Ephron. And as Ephron gets sick before the book even started, and he lets Kyle run the ship for that time. And as they are coming back to port, back to home, Ephron is getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Kefria and Kyle, they have 3 kids of their own. The oldest is Wintro, and then there's Malta, and last there is Selden. Selden doesn't really have a whole lot to do in the series. He gets mentioned a little bit more in the 3rd book because he is so young. The series doesn't really focus on him too much. But Wintro gets pulled from the monastery because Kyle needs him to work on the live ship. So when this whole thing at the very beginning goes down, basically the mother and the father, Veronica and Ephron, they know that Ephron's dying, and they're just trying to figure out how they can take care of their family, what would be best for their family, because their finances are failing, their estate is failing, their businesses are failing, as the new this whole slave influence is being pulled and drawn into Bingtown. And now, while Bingtown in and of itself doesn't allow slavery, like the larger country does, right? So you can kind of think of Bingtown as being like maybe a state, and then Jamalia is going to be, I guess technically it's also a state, but it could be seen as more like the country, right? The ruler of Jamalia, the satrap, owns Bingtown, and Bingtown has to pay them taxes and all of that. And slavery is a very big influence. It's kind of sweeping through the nation. And Bingtown wants to retain its independence and its own laws, but they have all this influence of the new traders that are coming in. They're being given land grants by the satrap, and there's all this change. And you have the older traders that they don't like all of this new change. And so there's all these tensions between the old traders and the new traders, and what are we going to do about it? And so going back to the reason why we are talking about that, Veronica and Ephron are trying to figure out how to best help their family. So they decide that it would be best if Kefria inherited the ship and Kyle captained the ship. And this is really a heavy, heavy blow to Althea. And she basically embarks in the first book on a quest to get her ship back. This is a quest to prove herself, to prove that she is not just a wild hooligan, and to prove that she can captain a ship, that she's worthy of it. And it helps, she goes off, she thinks she knows who she is, and as she goes off on this journey, She has some self-discovery and a lot of character growth in it. And Althea is not the only character we follow. She's definitely one of the main characters in the first book, but we also really follow Wintrow, because Wintrow, Kyle, which is Wintrow's father, he pulls him out of the monastery, which is something you're not supposed to do. That's like really taboo. But he says, you have to come and be on the ship. So why does he have to be on the ship? Well, it's because the ships require someone of family blood to be on them while they're sailing. Otherwise, they won't sail and they can go crazy and stuff. And so Wintrow gets pulled out of his monastery, and Montessori, and he does not want to be on this ship. And so you have his whole story and his inner conflicts and how he is trying to deal with this situation that he is in, being forced to be a sailor by his father, but really wanting to go back to the way things were, again with that whole, the new is coming in and we're resisting change. And what Kyle decides to do with having Wintrow on the ship, he says, we are going to rebuild our family fortune, and we are going to do that by getting involved with the slave trade. The only thing that you can say for Kyle is that he is legitimately trying to save the family's finances. However, it's kind of like save it at all costs. He doesn't understand the live ships because he's not from Bingtown. He's from an outside country, not even from Jamalia. He's from, I don't even know how to pronounce it because I don't listen to the audio, but like the Chaldeans is how I'm going to say it. And so he's from a completely different culture, and he does not understand the Bingtown culture very well, even though he's been married into this family, the Vestrit family, for a while. And he doesn't understand how the live ships work and their emotions and their feelings and like the ins and outs of that. And so he really doesn't care. He just wants to get their finances back. And he says slavery is the fastest way because it's going to turn the biggest profit. So we're going to go into slaving. And so that's his arc. And then Althea has her arc. And then we also have we have several arcs. Another arc that we're introduced to, one of the most interesting villains is going to be Captain Kennet. He is a fascinating character. And Kennet's big plan, he wants to unify the pirate isles and make himself the pirate king. And everything that he does is for a selfish purpose and for a selfish reason, but everybody interprets it very differently. They interpret his actions as benevolent and heroic. And so it's really funny. But you can see, like, it's nothing that is unbelievable. It's definitely very, very believable that, his actions that he is doing would be for a benevolent cause. But they're all, a means to an end. And so he is definitely a very fascinating villain, very interesting to read. And then you also have the story threads of Ronica Vestrit. So Ephron ends up dying at the beginning of the book, the very, very beginning, right, which causes all the inheritance issues, and then Kyle taking over the ship. And so you have Ronica left back at Bingtown, and she is now like the head of the family there. She's trying to save their finances while Kyle is hopefully going to fix everything, but she is making sure that she's keeping her head above water and steeped in the old traditions. She's wanting to do things without slaves, and she's wanting to really be a influence for moral good. Then you have Keffria and her line. You don't get too many Keffria chapters. In fact, don't think there's any in the first book, but her arc is very slow moving throughout all three books. And then you get Malta. Malta has a pretty big arc, throughout all three books, and the way her journey and the way that she changes. She definitely starts off as a daddy's girl, a spoiled brat. Nobody likes Malta at the beginning of the book. I'm like, oh my goodness, like just so spoiled, very defiant, and the challenges that she goes through because the world is changing. And I feel like each book brings more world building into the story. So I'd say the first book is really focusing on the interpersonal connections between the family and the individual journey that these people are going through. And then in the second book, the world broadens and we get a lot more of Bingtown and the Rain Wild Traders. So you learn about the Rain Wild Traders, which are just up the way a little bit, and their relationship with the Bingtown traders, you know, how everything all got started several generations ago, you know, the proud heritage that they have, and, you know, the promises that they made each other. And the Rain Wild Traders starts bringing in more of the magical artifact side of things. That's where you're going to start seeing a little bit more magic in the books. And they've got like these flame jewels that glow, and then like the dream box that appears. And so you get a few more magical artifacts in the second book in that way. And then the third book is going to expand the world again, and we're going to start getting the interactions between Jamalia and Bingtown and the Chaldeans and those three nations that are all going to come, and how they clash and interact, and the dramas between them, because Bingtown's trying to basically pull away from Jamalia and say, we want to be independent. And they are very profitable. You know, they're traders, so they're super profitable, and no country's gonna want to lose that profit, right? So all of that drama and the political tensions there are all going to come in, and then like I said, you've got the Chaldeans, who are a very strong force. That's where Kyle comes from. They're a very strong military force, and so you've got all these different political agendas that are going on, and then under all that, I won't say too much about this third one. I'll just start off with what you will know them as the sea serpents. You get a lot of chapters in the beginning, maybe not a lot, but you get like all these sprinkled throughout. You get all these sea serpent chapters that you kind of don't know what to do with those, but it all comes to a fruition in the third book, especially at the end of the second book and then into the third book. That whole line really develops, and the book starts to transcend a little bit out of the nautical fantasy and into the high fantasy genre, nearing the third book. All right, so for language, my language score for Ship of Magic, or the Liveship Traders trilogy, is going to be an 8 out of 10. I really thought that there was an appropriate amount of language for the setting that Robin Hobb was trying to create. There's not a lot of F words in the book. I think there's one in the first book and in the second book, and then there's like maybe 3 or 4 in the third book. I wasn't really counting, but I remember that there really wasn't very many. I mean, and these books are like over 800 pages long, so having that few amount in that many pages is really good. And then there's of course sprinkling of other swear words that are strewn throughout the books, but nothing overbearing, nothing that makes it feel like I'm slogging through a ton of swearing to try to get through like the story and figure out what's happening. There's none of that, which I really appreciate. I always appreciate it when an author can write an amazing adult fantasy story without bogging it down with tons and tons of swear words just to be like, hey, look at me, I'm writing an adult book. So I really appreciated that. And it just goes to prove that you can write epic fantasy for adults without just slogging it down, weighing it down so much with tons and tons of curse words. I know that there's some people out there that really enjoy that aspect. I am not one of those, and I definitely really appreciate that this book doesn't have a whole ton of that in there. So anything else that we might want to know about the world building or the lore, and it does build upon the Farseer trilogy universe. So you don't have to read Farseer first. So if you look at the map, the Farseer trilogy is the first trilogy in the Realm of the Elderlings series. This one does not take place in the same country, I suppose you could say, because that one takes place like up by the Six Duchies, which I guess is like over here in my mental map. And then this one takes place down on the shore in Jamalia and Bingtown and the Chaldeans. And so you don't have to read Farseer in order to read these books. You won't, it's not like you won't understand anything. There are a few Easter eggs strewn throughout that you're like, oh, I caught that. And there's a couple in each book, and you're like, because I read Farseer, I know what they're talking about, and I know what that reference goes to. And so that's pretty fun. But you don't have to have read it in order to enjoy the series. You can definitely just read Liveship Traders on its own as its own individual trilogy. Other than that, there is not a lot of like ancient history that is exposed. We know it's there because we come across like abandoned ruins and stuff. So maybe more of that will be coming in future installments. This, the Realm of the Elderlings, keeps going. I've only read Farseer and Liveships, so I haven't read the continuing books yet, although I do plan on continuing down there. I think there's 3 more installments in the world of the Realm of the Elderlings, and I will eventually be getting to those. But as of right now, there's not a whole lot of a backstory that is revealed. It's very, very much focused on the current story that is playing out. If there's anything that I didn't like, there's really not much that I didn't like about this series. It was so good. There was only really one thing that I I don't know, let down is the right word, but it didn't hit quite the right nerve with me. And that's a couple of the things with the way that the book ended, a couple of the ways that the threads were tied up. I think I enjoyed maybe like 80% of the endings and how the threads were all tied up. There's a few things that I'm like, oh, it doesn't make sense why that happened or why that didn't happen. And if you've read the trilogy and you've been in the booktube community, you know like the one specific thread line that I'm really, really thinking about, because a lot of people talk about it. So other than that one specific thread line, I think everything else was really, really great. I really enjoyed the way that all of the threads came together and how she completed the book. It felt complete. It didn't feel like there was anything left out or loose ends, which was really great. So that is the Liveship Traders. I hope that you enjoyed this review. Let me know if you pick it up. It is very much recommended. I really read through these books about as fast as I could. They were a fantastic read, and I hope that you enjoy them too and you decide to pick them up. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.